So now let's go to moving and capturing. Okay, we are going to be looking at how each chess piece moves and how they capture. Okay, now it's like before I go into that, let me explain the reason we are doing all this. This is the king, right? This is the king. This is also the king, right? Now this king is the most important piece on the chessboard, right? Most important. If peradventure the white pieces are able to attack this king in a way that it cannot escape, it has to surrender. Oh, I'm under this arrest and all those things. Then you could say that white has delivered a checkmate to black. Now, if black can do the same, then you could say that black has delivered. So the idea is to trap the king. So everything we are doing, all the fights, all the soldiers, we consider the pawn soldiers and all those things, all everybody is doing is to try to either protect the king and then attack the enemy's king or vice versa. So that is the main objective. Now, for you to be able to achieve this, you need to be able to understand how these pieces move. Okay, we have pawns, we have rooks, we have bishops, we have knights, and the queen. So how do they move? How do they work to protect this king? Okay, after that, then we'll look at playing the game itself. So let's first start. Let me clear the board and introduce to you this little guy here. It's called the pawn. Okay, so now the pawn can only move one square at a time. Okay, as you can see, it's going up. This is the only way it can move. If you see, whenever I click, let me bring it back. So whenever I click on the pawn, you can see that only one square is being highlighted. But now, when I drop the pawn here in the beginning of the game, the pawn can move twice. So like if we drop the complete set of pawns, right? Let's drop like 4 pawns. You will see now that this pawn, this is the first time I'm moving it. It will move twice. I can move it twice. Now let's try for this one. I can also move this one twice, but let me decide to move it just. So let me not be using twice. It can move 2 squares in the beginning. It will be a better use of the word. It can move 2 squares in the beginning. So the second one, let me try to move it. I can move this one square at a time, right? So let me try to move this one. Look at these squares that I highlighted, this and this. I can move this here. Let me now move this here as well. So 1 square at a time, and the ones in front, and move them twice. Now, if I want to move again for this one, let's start with this one. You see that I can only move it once. What about this one? I can also only move it once. So that first time you are moving the pawn, if you don't move it 2 squares, you cannot move it again. If you move it just once, that means it's only that 1 square you can move it till the end of the game. The pawn only moves in forward direction. Okay, the pawn only moves in forward direction. But this is the great thing about the pawn. The pawn can capture sideways. Okay, the pawn can only capture sideways, which means if there's anybody blocking the pawn cannot capture the person. Okay, if there's anybody blocking the pawn cannot capture the person. So let's take, for instance, this is a chess game, and we have moved this pawn. I move this one, and he moves, let's say, this one, right? Good. This is wrong opening, no, but let's be watching. Now, can white capture this black pawn? Can this white piece capture this black piece? No. Now, when beginners start, they assume that, okay, since the pawn can only move forward, when he jams anybody on his way, he will just capture it. If you do it that way, that means the pawn will capture because we have 8 pawns, you'll be capturing everybody and be going like that. But it does not work that way. Now, how does it work? Let me show you. So when I play, and maybe my opponent plays something like this, sorry, that's the wrong move. My opponent plays something like this, he moves 2 squares in the beginning. How do I capture? Out of these 2 pieces, Which do you think my pawn can capture? This is one. This is white. Which do you think it can capture? This or this? So my pawn can only capture this pawn here on d5. That is the only pawn that my white pawn on e4 can capture. So if I say I want to capture this piece, I will have to capture this way. Now, if you see, when I click on this pawn, you will see that this place will be circled. It will be circled, highlighting it and telling you that I can capture this way. But if maybe this queen is, sorry, if maybe the queen is, if maybe the queen, let's say the queen is somewhere here now. Can this pawn capture this queen? No, it is not possible because I'm using the analysis board. That's why this nonsense is happening. So the pawn cannot capture this queen. The pawn cannot capture this queen. The pawn can only capture this guy. Okay, I'm going to set up a proper board and you will see that very soon. So for now, just know that the pawn moves in a very simple way. If I want to move the pawn, I can move it this way and then I can move it forward this way. And then I can capture who is here and I can capture this way. I cannot do more than that. Do not capture what is in your front using the pawn. In a game, it will be wrong. Now, let me look at my team lost today, so everybody's trolling me. If you can, in case you hear the notifications from my phone, is that of people trolling me, but my God is bigger than all of you. Okay, now let's go. Let's continue. That is the pawn we have talked about. So let's remove the pawn. Let me remove the pawn from the board. Okay, let me remove each and every one of them. Let me just even delete the board. Now let's talk about someone else. Let's talk about the rook. Okay, I told you after. Now, how does the rook move? This is a rook. Let's just use one. The rook's movement is the easiest to notice. The rook moves horizontally and vertically. See, the moment I clicked on it, you see these dots highlighting where the rooks move. The rook can go here, and the rook can go follow the arrow here. So the rook moves horizontally and vertically. Now, the rook is very powerful as well. Very, very powerful. How does it capture? It captures anything that is within its path when it's moving. So for instance, if maybe this guy is here and the rook wants to come to a6, I will have to use this rook to first capture this guy and take him out of the board first. So when I take him out of the board, my opponent will have to make a move before I then move to a6. I will not just, maybe I have a pawn on a5 and I want to move my rook. I will not just come here and jump to a6. It does not work that way. So unlike the pawn that can only capture sideways, other pieces like the rook, which is one of them, capture anything that is along their path of movement. So when they get there, they capture you and they stay there, wait for the opponent to make the next move, and then they continue. Are you with me? So let us, we'll still play practical games and you will see how they function. So if per se, let me use white, sorry, let me first. So if per se, I want to bring my rook to f6. If I want to bring my rook to f6, what do I do? How do I bring this rook to f6? There are different ways of bringing this rook to f6. I could either come this way and then come this way after my opponent makes the next move, or I could come this way. Sorry. I could come this way and then come this way to f6. So they have different methods that I could use to come here, but this is just one of them. Now, I could come like this, That is me getting here. Now I could also do something like this, like this. So you see, when I click on the rook, the square shows me all the squares that it can move to are all highlighted for you to see. So this rook from here, I can move this way, it can move this way, it can move this way, and it can also move this way. So which shows that the rook moves horizontally and vertically. Good. Now let's talk about another interesting piece, the knight. The knight has the most confusing movement of all pieces. Of all pieces, the knight is the most confusing. So many people find it difficult to understand how the knight moves. But one major thing you should have in mind is that the knight moves in L shape. Okay, so there are different ways for people to remember or recognize. Some people prefer to count squares. Okay, now you can either count vertically, count 2 squares vertically and take a left or right turn, count 2 squares horizontally and take a left or right turn. That is the easiest way to do it. So if I count 1, 2, I take either left or right turn. So which means the knight can come, which means the knight can come here, or the knight can come here. So if I count 1, 2, left or right, so if I want to move this knight, I can bring him here and I can bring him here. Now, another way I can do it is to count 1, 2, which is horizontal, take upward or downward turn, upward or downward turn. So if I'm going vertically, it will be left or right. If I'm going horizontal, it will be upward or downward. But this one, there's no square downward, so that means I have to go upward, which is here. Which means if I want to move, I will have to move here. So I can also come here. Now that is why you see whenever, from here, if I click on this, you see that the 3 squares it can land are here, here, and here. So if I click on this, the 3 squares will be properly highlighted. You see these dots showing that the knight can come on A3, C3, and D2. So that is that for that. Now let us bring the knight to, let's just bring the knight to maybe the middle, right? Let's bring it to the middle and let's click on it. You see, and in the middle, that is where the knight is most powerful. It can, now let's count. Like I said, it can go up 1, 2, then turn left or right, which means 1, 2, it can come here, 1, 2, it can also come here. So it can also come sideways, left or right, right? So horizontally, let's go 1, 2, up and down, right? Sorry, up, then let's go 1, 2, down. So it can come here as well. So this other one, it could go down and turn left or right. 1, 2, then it will go either left, 1, 2, it will come right. So on that way, you can use this 1, 2, down, 1, 2, up. So you see that these are the possible squares that the knight can come from the center. Unlike when it was here that it could only attack just 3 squares. From here, it can attack all these 8 squares. Now, how does the knight capture? The knight captures any piece that is where it lands, apart from its own comrade, okay, or its fellow white piece. So if there is any black piece on any of these highlighted squares, the white piece, the knight will capture it or will displace it to sit there. So it does not matter if you have the queen there, it does not matter if you have the rook or the pawn, the knight will jump there, pick you up, and replace you. So that is how the knight functions. So now so let's show it again. This, okay, this, okay, this, okay, this, okay. Let me draw the arrows so that you'll be able to see how I did my counting. This way, and this way. So 1, 2 turn, 1, 2 turn, 1, 2 turn. So another thing people usually note is that when the knight turns, it can never land on the same color of the square where it starts. So if it turns, look at the knight in this instance, sorry. is on the white square, right? So if it's landing, that means you should be expecting it to land on the black square. The white cannot start from the white square and land on the white square. To land on the black square rather. So let us so the knight, in as much as the movement is confusing, it is very simple. One major thing you should also have in mind is that this movement is considered to be jumping. Okay, the knight is the only piece that can jump. Other pieces have to move diagonally, but if that's why the knight is very, very important in a chess game, because it can jump over enemy pieces. If there is any piece that is here that it can just or here, it can just jump over here and come here. So it is, this movement is a form of jumping, just like when you have horse that hoop, what do we call it in chess, in real life rather. So this is this for the knight. I believe that from here you'll be able to understand how the knight moves. So if I want to bring the knight somewhere here, how do I do that? That means I will have to move, let's say this way. Then from here I will move this way. From here I can move this way, and then from here I can move this way. So if I want to bring the knight here, you see I will jump. Now let's do the practical. I will jump from here to here to here and then down to here. So this is how the knight moves. You can pause this video, watch it, understand it, to understand, to get where I'm coming from. Okay, you can always pause this video to understand how the knight moves. Very, very simple and straightforward process. Okay, now let's look at another piece that I love so much as a Catholic, the bishop. I love the bishop so much. The bishop moves diagonally. We always have to, sorry, this is not a starting square. So this is not a starting square. This is a bishop, and this is another bishop. Now, for bishops, we always, the reason I'm using two bishops, if you check the other pieces, I used one to give example, but for the bishop, I'm using two. Why am I using two? Because we have two different types of bishop. We have the light squared bishop and the dark squared bishop. Their names come from the fact that there will always be a bishop that will be only on the white squares, and we will have a bishop that will be only on the dark squares. So which means the dark square bishop cannot enter a light square. Like this bishop now that is on this dark place, it is our dark squared bishop. It can only move towards the dark lines. It cannot come to a light square. Whereas this one as well can only move towards the light lines. It cannot come to a dark square. Now, with this, it is very obvious that the bishop move diagonally. So the bishops move diagonally. Let's check it out. When you click on this, you see that this is the place that this bishop can go, and this is the place that this bishop can go. So if you click on it, you see that the bishop can either come here or come here. Whereas this other bishop can also either come here or come here. So the bishop, how they move is diagonal movement. Okay, they capture, just like I said, that anything that is along their path, they will capture it. So the pawn is a piece that is the only piece that captures sideways. The knight, on the other hand, jumps and captures anything that is on the spot that is trying to occupy. The rook will capture anyone that is within its path. The bishop will capture anyone that is within its path. So, apart from their fellow piece. Now, if there is any of their piece that is blocking them, they cannot capture anyone. So, the person that is blocking, like maybe if we have a pawn here now, okay, if we have a pawn here and I click, you see that this light square bishop cannot move, but this one, if I click, you see that it can move. The dot is showing that it can move. So, but the light square bishop cannot move, while this one can move. Now, these are the major things you should note. That the pawn that if there's any piece on its path that is its own fellow white piece, it cannot just bulldoze it out of the way and continue as it's going. That piece needs to create space for the bishop or any other piece to move. So if we put the bishop here, you see that, sorry, we put the bishop here, you see that it has more scope, right? If we put it, or let's bring it to the center. Let's bring it to the center. So if you click, you see it has more scope along the white diagonals. It can come here, it can come here, it can come here, it can come here. Okay, good. Now, with that said, if I want to bring this bishop to, let's say, this place, how do you think I'll do that? If I want to bring the bishop to e8, for me to be able to bring the bishop to e8, I can move different ways. I could either come here, and then come here. That is because I have to just follow only the white lines, or I will come here and here, right? So either way, I could decide to follow the foolish man route and first come here, right? Then come here, and then now come here. So either ways, these are all the ways the bishop can move. So for instance, I want to come there. I'll first click here. After my opponent makes his move, then I will come here. So this is the simple way that the bishop moves. The queen. Boom. I love the queen. Oh, my back. I love the queen so much. The queen moves in a very simple and straightforward process. The queen is considered by everyone in the chess world to be the most powerful member of the chessboard. Okay, so for out of all the chessmen, for either white or black, the queen is the most powerful. It has the power of the rook, it has the power of the bishop and the pawn combined. So you know the way the pawn moves, right? You know the way the pawn captures. You know the way the bishop moves. You know the way the bishop captures. You know the way the rook moves and the way the rook captures. These are exactly how the queen moves. So you combine them. Okay, so let's click on, you see from here, that means the queen can move like the rook vertically and horizontally, right? Like the pawn vertically as well. Then like the bishop, right, diagonally, like the bishop, right? And it can capture anything within its path. So if the queen is going anywhere and there is any piece within its path, it will capture you. The only time the queen, I don't know what this arrow is. The only time the queen cannot capture, the only way the queen cannot capture is the way the knight captures. You know, the knight is a very interesting piece. So the way the knight captures is the only way the queen cannot capture. Like, because if it's the knight now, the knight can jump. So the knight is a piece that can somehow evade the queen. Somehow evade the queen, if you know what you are doing. So with that being said, this brings me to the last member of the chessboard, which is the most important one, like I've discussed. The king. The most important. But before I even bring the king, sorry, let me bring the queen again. Let me drop in the middle or in the center, and let's click. You see all the places it can go. Let's check. It can come here. It can come here. It can come here. It can come. You see how powerful it is. Compare this with the way every other person has been moving. You see that it has large scope. So from the center, the queen is too powerful. That's why you see for some newbies, the mistake they used to make, once they start the game, boom, they'll bring their queen to the center because they know how strong and powerful it is. Once it gets there, they start attacking. But forgetting that the queen can also be attacked. Now let's check the most important now. The king. The king is the most important. But in as much as it's the most important, it is, I consider it to be the most lazy member of the chessboard. Lazy. Why am I using lazy? The king can only move one square at a time. So you see the way it is here, right? It can only come here, 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 left or right, unlike the pawn. You know, the pawn can move forward. But you see the king, it can only move just left, right, forward, backward. anyhow. So if I want to take the king here, like somewhere to b8, I'll have to go, I'll have to first travel all this distance and then bring him here. Or I travel this distance and then bring him here. How do I mean? So when I want to bring the queen to b8, I'll come like this. I'll be moving it small, small. If I make my opponent to make his move, I will play. My opponent will play. I will play. My opponent will play. I will play. My opponent will play. I will play. He will play. I will play. He will play. I will play. He will play. Boom. Till I get here. So that is why we consider it to be one of the laziest pieces. Now, this for the movement, and for the capturing, the king can also capture anything within its path. Anyone at all within its path, it can capture. Now, of course, you cannot capture the king. Capturing the king means checkmate. So once the king is attacked in such a way that it cannot move to safety, it is considered checkmate. Sorry. What else? That is that, movement and capturing. So next we'll look at special moves. Okay, we'll look at special moves. I will explain castling to you. I will explain en passant to you, and maybe any other thing that comes to mind. Okay, we'll look at special moves, because those I'll tell you the reason I will teach special moves in the next lecture. Thank you very much.